Not only want to be great for that role, but then I think about my team as well. As your team grows, there's more people that depend on you, and there's definitely a different level of responsibility. It's a lot harder to attack those things when you don't even have yourself together. When I was just tinting by myself, I could f up and it just affects me. But now I got a team, and it's like, this is going to affect an entire team. But when I think about the team, how do you unlock their best version if you can't even do that for yourself? Ladies and gentlemen, this is another episode of the Born to Tint podcast here live in Henderson, Nevada, featuring Josh Miller, the champion Ricky Miller, and the glass tinting legendary figure entertaining Texas Squeegee. Here's to start off this podcast. We had a great conversation dealing with health, wealth, happiness, habits, hard work, consistency, all the great virtues that make you the ultimate you. This is going to be an incredible show we got lined up here. Take it away.
The amount of money they spend.
They spend a lot of money, but
you need the entertainment.
You need people there.
People to engage with it. Yeah, because it's sure you can spend a lot of money, but then that loses its value after you see it and then what?
Yeah.
You know, but if you have something that engages throughout and turn it into an actual show, yeah, it'll keep people locked in.
Yeah, and then the content side of it.
Yeah, it kind of surprised me that more people don't really realize that part of it. It's you spend all this money on his booth to maximize your ROI on it. Give people a reason to film it, record it, because we said yesterday, the videos live forever. So,
and you don't know what's gonna hit. Maybe we talk Solar Garden doing something like that. We participate, help facilitate it next year. Yeah, that'd be cool. I have a flat glass part Expel did that one year and actually do live demos of flat glass.
I mean, I guess you could, but it's an auto show though.
So?
Yeah, I guess. Well, I'm just saying, we can do something auto still. We can still do something shrink worthy, unless they are.
You're still exposing all those people there to look at cars to realize how many people there that do have a badass car have a nice house.
Oh, you guys are talking about having architectural at the
just something and just anything, just for the fact to draw people in.
I think you're the better person for it though, because you're going to bring the entertainment side that
I'd be hiring
in this industry could do.
I'd be hiring him.
Yeah.
The conversation would the second part of the conversation is, hey, are you available next SEMA? That's where that would go. But no, it's that's what drew so many people into Johnson's booth when we were doing the bug window, when they were actually putting a time clock on it, the first couple years that we were doing it. And it was, I wouldn't say, definitely, I guess, respectable competition in the fact, it was bragging rights, and there were things that you got docked for. And then, and unfortunately, it evolved to a point where they were just trying to, which I understand it's business, they were just trying to make the person that they're trying to convert to buy their film, let that person shrink and throw the window on, they'd squeegee and oh, that's good. And they rip it off. I'm I can see a crease from 6 feet away. Why that shouldn't count. And that's where I kind of stepped away from that competition for a bit, and then they just ended up stopped doing it. But that got a lot of people to their booth when they actually were writing the times down, being kind of strict on the strict to the point on the judging, would lay out you could prep the window first, you can do all these things. Time starts when the heat hits the tint, so do whatever you want beforehand, and then let the tinters go. And then that's where we were starting out. Our first times were 5 minutes, 4 minutes. And we're it's fast. And after a couple of years, we were down in the mid 2s. We're cutting the sides of the window to begin with, to where it's literally shrink, cut, peel, throw on. And they were letting you do it as much as possible too. So if anything, they should have drawn back. You can only do it once in a day, because it was technically unfair, because I was down there for 4 or 5 hours. I probably did that window 30 plus times in a day. Of course my time's going to be faster. I just got 30 reps on a single window. You're going to let me blow through it. But they didn't mind, because every time someone goes on one of those competitions, where's the crowd? Right around there. Now you just drew everybody in. Now everyone's at your booth. Yeah. Now it's your job to start talking to people.
Yeah, it's a show. And that's with these, when a lot of times when I go and I see some of these booths, they spend a lot of money on them, but it's where's the memorable factor beyond just I guess a budget swinging contest, for lack of a better term. But
that sounds about right.
Yeah, but it's like they have like a lot of them will have like a nice booth, but then what's the show? Like that's often remembered more. And I think that they're some of the people that are there like have brought into question about, hey, we're spending all this money. What's the true ROI here? And I think like one of the patterns that I see is a lot of them spend money on making the booths bigger, but not necessarily more engaging, because bigger doesn't usually translate for that. I mean, if you gave me 10% of a budget, same space, I guarantee you I would pack the house way more than some of these other booths that have a lot bigger stuff. So I think it's more of a shift in, it's like, okay, yeah, thinking about the ROI is important, but thinking about more about like, hey, just spending like $100,000, $250,000, $1 million on a booth isn't going to guarantee you engagement. And playing that smart and putting on a show, and obviously having the right talent and utilizing people like, I would say like us and people in the community that are involved and have certain abilities or talents, and bring them into these shows. Like it's
just having
an investment back into the community.
Yeah, like look at what Eric does at the events where he's got the, throw the ball to win a true spray.
The whiz pong.
Yeah, or the tape measure one. Like that was
that's like 2 years ago.
Yeah, and that had a line around the whole conference center to come over there and see what's going on there.
I didn't get to do whiz pong. I was competing. Damn it.
The what was it called? The measuring tape one?
Yeah.
That was how I got started into doing commentary.
Yeah, you were doing it for that. Yeah.
Yeah, because it wasn't planned. You remember we talked about yesterday, like how sometimes certain challenges would just yield opportunities, and then that becomes like, oh, you kind of discover things along the way. So that was one of those when we were having the WizMax challenge.
Yeah, WizMax.
And in between rounds, like there wasn't like the concept of having that as a challenge was good, but once it started, immediately he picked up, and we both picked up. I'm like, hey, there needs to be something that's going to fill, that's going to kind of like add the spice of flavor to keep people engaged and like let people know what's happening. So he was like, is there any, like, what can we do? And I was like, you have a mic? And he goes, yeah, here you go. I grabbed the mic, and I just reverted back to, I don't know, man, just watching sports. And then I'm like, okay, I don't really know people, but all it is when you're doing commentary, I watched this from Joe Rogan, and how Joe Rogan has been described as doing commentary. It's like you could be a blind person and listen to a UFC fight, and because of the Joe Rogan's commentary, you can hear what's happening in the fight. So I just took that concept and said, okay, well, just visually describe what's happening in front of you, and then I put my own little flair to it here and there. So if somebody's coming up, they're throwing it on, and I see their eyebrows burrow a little bit, or just like it's like I'll bring that into the commentary. I was like, in the face scrunches has maybe a little bit of a disappointing round, and then they walk away. And then a lot of times it also becomes fun, because we were just at the Expo booth, and you guys know Robert Foster, obviously, All Out Tint, giant, jacked up dude. He's walking like, and I could see him towering. He's walking up to the Expo booth. I can dude, I see like there's a crowd of people, like they're at the Expo Windshield Protection Film Challenge, and then I see this like towering giant like, just walking from the back, and then I was like, Robert Foster walking up to the Expo booth. Is he gonna go all out at the Expo Windshield Protection Film? And he's just like laughing. He's like, no. He comes over to me. He's like, yeah, maybe tomorrow. I don't know, maybe later. And he's walking away. I tell him, Robert Foster, All Out Tint, says to the Texas Squeegee that he says no unless a crowd riles him up to get into the gym. And if he's like looking back, like, no.
So Expel did have you commentating that. And
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I literally was at.
That was my thing. Is like they need to be doing that with you.
Well, we were at American Standards booth yesterday, just kind of making our rounds.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I hear someone talking, and I'm like, that's Carlos. And I turn around, look, and the competition's going. That's why I walked up, and then all of a sudden, someone's like, "You gotta go do it." I'm like, "Oh no, I'm good." And then I think they brought it to your attention, and then all of a sudden, I'm like, "Okay, I'll do it now." But no, you definitely were drawing the crowd, because like I could hear you. Like those booths are next to each other, kind of, but I was on the opposite side of the booth, and I could hear your commentating from over there, and I was like, "I'm gonna go check this shit out now."
Yeah,
I want to see what's happening,
dude. It was funny because like Mark was aware, obviously, like I love doing this, And yesterday I was walking around the booth after we finished the podcast. We went back to the show. I was walking around, and then I see like I'm like, oh, let me go hang out at the Expel booth. And as I'm turning a booth, I see the giant Expel hanging banner, and I see a crowd of people. I'm like, what the hell's going on over there? Like, why is there a crowd? Like, I wonder maybe like is Marco killing it, doing a demo. Yeah. I don't know. So I walk up there and I see a timer install timer or install challenge up on the top. And I'm just like, these mother effers, like Mark, I'm like thinking to myself, Mark, what the hell? You didn't tell me that this was happening. So as soon as I walked on the floor, they were like, you want a mic? I'm like, does a bear shit in the woods? Yes, I want a mic. I was like, give me the mic. And so I got on the mic, and yeah, it was a little bit of a tough go at first still, because dude, when doing commentary, it's like, it's kind of like a sprint. It's like you're sprinting because you have to pay attention to everything that's going on. And I'm looking for everything. I'm looking for the timer, what kind of technique they're using. Are they on the bottom quadrant, top quadrant? They're starting from the middle. Are they going outwards and going from the middle upwards? And now they're moving to the driver's side. Like, I'm looking for everything as I'm kind of keeping tabs on everything. Timer, somebody from the audience is now cheering them on. And like, where is this person from? New Mexico, California. So I'm like, everything is tuned in. And I was coming from like very relaxed. After we did our podcast, I was up there very relaxed, chill. And then I see, oh shit, they want me. Okay, yeah, get on the mic. And I immediately had to go from like operating at a walking speed to sprint. I was like, all right, let's do it. And so this time going back was more calculated. Once I go back after the podcast, I'm going to go back, and I told him, I was like, hey, the last hour, 4 to 5 p.m., I was like, I'm going to ramp it up. I want to go all out. And
that's smart though. Now I do. We can't though.
You've never done a solo pod by yourself?
Oh, that's messed up.
Well, I've done them.
Yeah, because I wasn't there.
Oh, so yeah. I won't be here.
Yeah, I mean, you know what's cool is I had been holding on to some news for some time. I've been waiting to announce it, but Chris Hardy announced it to his team already, so now it's official. But I don't know if I've told you guys, but yeah, I've done emceeing for certain events. The first one. First one was Tinder Battles, because that's where I got a lot of that development. But outside of Tinder Battles, the first event that I emceed was I can't remember. No, I can't remember. I know there's two of them. I just can't remember which one came first. I don't know. Autofill Mastery.
That's what
that had to be the first one.
Yeah, I think so.
But I guess it's a growth conference. But that was the first one, and then Autobahn Dealer Conference was the second one.
Autobahn.
Yeah.
Because the Autofill Mastery, that was when I was out here, right?
Yeah.
During
Resorts
SEMA,
World.
right before SEMA.
Right before SEMA.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was the first one. Okay. And then Autobahn was the first technically dealer conference, and shout out to the Autobahn team. Those great people over there. And I really appreciate the opportunity. But now coming into this year, like the big opportunity that I'm really excited for, and I've been working really hard for, it was XPEL's dealer conference. I'm the official MC and host of that one.
That
coming
makes
up
so
next
much
year.
Sense. That's
so
awesome.
When is it?
In February. They brought it into. They had asked me about it, if I was interested in it internally. I was just like, "Is it bear shit in the woods?" No, no, I was just like, "Hell yeah, I'm interested." I'm like, "Yeah, I'd be interested."
I'm just more likely shocked that they're even asking, like, "Are you interested?" And it's like, "Hey, so you're gonna be here, going to be announcing, like, let's get past the point of us asking. We already know you're gonna do it, and you want to do it. Like, come on down." Like, the fact that, like, even doing the competition there, the fact that you walked up to it and like, what the hell? Especially for XPEL, that shocks me. That XPEL, especially Marco too, not already telling you like, "Hey, you should be here at this time. I got something for you."
Yeah,
here's Mike.
Right there, you go. Yeah, but so I had gone to the XPEL dealer conference earlier this year in 24 in February, and I didn't go in there committing to almost anything really on purpose, because sometimes, like, and this is true in life, sometimes that if the person that can sometimes grant you a certain opportunity, they have to be able to see that they had, like, the idea has to pop in their head.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe this person might be good for this. And for them to see that, they kind of have to see like what you can do. And if you're busy doing something else, then you never put yourself in a position where somebody could see some of the things that you can offer or provide. So when I went to the XPEL dealer conference in 24 earlier this year, I purposely went not really committing to much, because I wanted to be able to walk around. It's what I call float like a butterfly and tack like a bee. It's like a window film. But I wanted to be able to float like a butterfly whenever I see an opportunity to seize on it. And sure enough, it came up. And Dean Mitchell had asked if I could help him with doing commentary on automotive. I was like, yeah, I could do that. And it wasn't for the entire show. But when I got there, Kristen Gish, who's one of the events coordinators for XPEL, they had run into a little bit of a situation where they didn't have somebody for the flat glass, the architectural side. So, I was mentioned, and she asked, would you like to do it? And I'm like, absolutely. So, I put on my jacket, go to the flat glass side. I start doing commentary over there. As soon as I'm done with that, jump over to the automotive side, just lay some commentary over there. And it was a lot of fun. For me, it's a lot of fun. I get to know competitors, but the other one, what was interesting too, and this is one thing that I really, really enjoy about what I do is as well, is that whenever I was going in there, to me, it was a privilege. Like, dude, this is an honor, privilege. I'm having a blast. For some of the other guys, it was like a relief. I'm like, take the mic. I'm so glad you're here. I'm just like, dude, I love doing it. So, but yeah, I guess because it must have been because of that now I'm gonna do the MC and host for the Expo Dealer Conference, which, man, they're bringing in somewhere between 700, 900 people into the conference. So it'd be the biggest audience that
and they're doing competitions during that, right?
Yeah,
I believe so. Well, like the MC portion of it, everybody's in a conference room, so everybody's there, and then like the competitions break off. So I still want to do commentary. I don't think that's going to be an issue, but doing both, like, it's going to be. Yeah, like whenever you do these things, your brain is like, you have to. It's a sprint. It's a mental sprint.
Yeah.
So it gets tough to be able to go back and forth. But ever since they told me that, I just had this like switch that flipped in my mind that I was like, okay, I have such a respect for those roles, like that job role in any capacity, whether it's a dealer conference, a window film conference, a competition, anything. There is a privilege and an honor in that role that you need to treat it that way, because you're at the center of a lot of people's memory of that event or that experience. And so a switch flipped in me that if I'm going to be that for others, I need to be the ultimate version of myself.
Yeah.
What does that look like? And this comes from something that I had heard in Joe Rogan's podcast, where he said, imagine if there was a camera crew following you, making a documentary of your life, and you're the hero of that documentary. What would that look like? Yeah. And think about that when you go out and go out and eat, go out and drink, go out in the mornings, and do you stay in? Do you go work out? Like during work, do you do your best? Are you a positive leader, or do you procrastinate? So all those things are starting to factor. And I'm thinking about, I want the absolute best version of myself so that I can be that experience for others. What does that look like? And I thought about it from that perspective. And it's, you guys were an influence in even thinking about that too, because I was never a morning person. Like waking up in the mornings and going to the gyms and working out, that was just not me.
Yeah.
But like the saying goes, whether you say you are or you say you're not, you're right. So I was like, okay, well, stop bitching that or complaining that I'm not a morning person. The hell you are, the hell you're not. Like whatever you do, whatever you tell yourself, you're casting a vote for your identity, and that's malleable. Yeah. So if I wake up in the mornings and I say, I'm just not a morning person, like you're just telling yourself that's just putting it into your brain. You're not a morning person. So therefore, what are your thoughts going to reflect? Yeah. You're not a morning person. So from there, like whenever that was brought to my table, I was like, okay, enough of this. I need to start working out. Mornings are most predictable. I'm going to start with that. What's something else that I can develop with the brain? I was like, reading. Go back to reading, because I used to read a lot. So go back to reading, pick up books on the skills that you want to learn from, so that you're constantly like exercising your brain. And then the other one was like, what are hobbies that fulfill your passions, outside of just work? And I was like, well, for me, I love playing music, like guitar. So I built a habit lifestyle of in the mornings, like basically it's like plants. You water each one of them every day. Because if you go too long without watering one, they die. And that's kind of the same. If you don't take care of yourself physically, your health goes down. Mentally, your mental health goes down. So every day was just a habit of watering these things here and there, waking up in the mornings, going to the gym, or actually waking up in the mornings, starting off reading a book so that it wakes your body up, and then let me take that back. Getting up in the mornings, reading a book, it wakes your mind up. Then going to the gym, putting yourself through that physical stress wakes your body up. And then coming out of that, then it's like you had a day with yourself. You spent time working on it at the beginning of the day. So everything else after that is affected. And ever since I started doing that, it's been life-changing for me. Yeah. Starting off with the book Atomic Habits, that one was, dude, Mike Nork says something that always stood out to me. I don't know if you guys remember, but he said, I don't know, but basically the message is just like success is just a result of habits. You know, it's like, it's all it is. And it's like, oh shit. So that's what success is built on. It's built on, you know, compounding effects of habits. And so like, okay, just like a plant, I can water it today, give it all the nutrients at once, all the air and light at once. Tomorrow, it's not going to be a full blown plant. Like it takes time.
Yep.
So
no, I've bought in Atomic Habits. I need to get back on my kick of actually getting working out at least 6 times a week. Past like 6 to 8 weeks have been an absolute shit show in the fact of going from WFR, which I wasn't even going to go to, in like 2 weeks prior. I was like, all right, I guess I'll go to this. Went to that, and then I had like a week and a half, and then it was WFCT, and then I had another like 2 weeks, and then I had the Panorama conference, and then in between all that, it was getting this set up, like running the business, and then along making sure that we're moving things along to where the contractor can get into where they need to get into to get things built out, because we wanted to give SolarGuard, and also beyond giving SolarGuard something to walk through, we wanted to be able to do this. We wanted to be able to sit down in our space, finally get that going, because that's always been the long-term goal. And it's like, all right, we just need to, this next 2-3 months is going to suck. And it's like, all right, like I told my wife that too. I'm like, this is just going to be a whirlwind for the next 2-3 months. It's going to be nonstop. I'm going to have to be in super early. And unfortunately, the detriment to myself has been like, I haven't had a training plan. And I was also coming off my 100-mile race, and me and my wife will go back and forth, and she's 100% right when it comes down to it. Is I usually, and I've cut the time back to where it's taking me a shorter time to get back into a regiment. Yeah. I am a more productive person when I'm in my regiment, where I'm at least in my mind, if I'm not on a training block, I'm at least between 25 to 30 miles in a week, throwing in at least 3 days for lifting. And one thing I've always wanted to add to it was the reading, but I always slack off of that because I have Audible, and it's like, I haven't listened to Atomic Habits yet because I've kind of said to myself, I'm not going to listen to this. I want to actually read it, because I've always been, I sucked at reading, like through high school and everything.
You are what you are, what you say you are.
I was glad you called him out on that.
I agree 100%. And like, it's one of our new employees, his buddy Zach, he put out a book that was pretty much along the same lines. Like, you got to take one step at a time, put one foot in front of the other. Like, it's not going to happen overnight. You got to slowly set the habits and go from there, and just not think like, all right, I read this morning, I'm going to be the best reader in the world by tomorrow. No, it's going to start off with like a goal. Like, I'm going to read 5 pages. I'm going to do 5 pages and just do that every day. And eventually that book's going to be done. And then I'll go on to the next book. Like, I've always wanted to, and I have yet to do it. And I probably will at some point. If I get into the 100-mile race that I want to get into, I probably will do 75 hard, like 75 days before that race. I want to time it to where it's literally going into that race, I've cut out any nonsense, and I've literally even regimented myself even that much more to where when I do that race, because the opportunity to do that race, it doesn't come often, and I might not ever get an opportunity to run that race again. So I want to make sure I hit the goals in that race that I want to hit. The only way I'm going to be able to do that is to make sure that everything's firing at the same time, mentally, physically, everything.
Yeah.
So, but even the 75 hard was kind of like, that's the inspiration. The fact, like, within that, like the things that certain things you have to cut out. Like, do I drink often? No, but having a glass of wine or something like that with dinner with my wife at the end of a day, I do enjoy that. And like with that, if you're going to stick strict to that, like there's no drinking. Like the drinking water thing, I already do that. That's not a problem. The two exercises, working out twice a day, necessarily wouldn't be a hard thing, but like one's got to be inside, one's got to be outside. So it's like you have to regiment that together too. But the reading thing is like, you have to, I think it's 10, but you're committed to like, I think 10 pages a day. I forget how many books, depending on how long a book is, how many books you'll probably get done by the time that 75 days is over. But I can see where the benefit will come from if I just need to start doing it and need to stop talking about it and need to just do it. Because like reading and listening to something is two different things. Yeah. Like, I'm still going to get the information from listening, but I think exercising that part of your brain while you're reading is also a net positive, where I've never really got to experience it because I've always like, I started it and then I stopped. Like, I actually need to follow through and actually do it, because I know there's got to be a net gain from it when it comes out. I've heard too many people talk about the fact, like, pick up a book, sit down. It slows down the pace. You're actually just sitting there and you're in the moment of that book, instead of like, if I'm on a run listening to a book, I'm still running. I'm still thinking about other things, but then I'm also listening to that content at the same time. So I'm definitely multitasking. I'm not just devoting it strictly to the content that I'm trying to consume at that moment.
Yeah, with reading, I have a couple of friends that they're the school of thought that they would rather do ebooks, and to each their own. If it works for you, it works for you. But to me, ebooks sound too much like a podcast, and I very often am doing like I'm working or I'm tinting or I'm doing something, listening to a podcast, and it's very easy for me to tune it out. And because I temporarily focus, like shift my focus somewhere else, and then I come back and I miss something. When I'm reading an actual like hard book, there's times where I'll go through a paragraph and then I ask myself, what did you just read? And I'm like, dude, you're thinking about your mind somewhere else. So like reading an actual book has been very beneficial to hone your mind into the present moment, because I'll catch myself. Yeah, you went through a couple of paragraphs, but I can't, if I had to explain them again, I couldn't. I'm like, okay, you read through it, but you didn't read through it. Yeah. So go back, read it again, like hone in your focus and go through it. And one of the problems that I had, dude, it was this thing. This thing is such a problem. Like, and I've noticed not just for me, but for a lot of people, like this idea, when I started thinking about your brain being like on a treadmill, for example, and when you're on the phone and you're scrolling through, that's the band doing this to your brain and your thoughts. And so when I would put the phone down, my brains kept doing this. So I was just thoughts here, thoughts there. And it's like, and it just led to anxiety because, as I think as entrepreneurs, we look for things to solve for, like challenges that we need to solve for. So our brain is constantly, and sometimes when it gets too much, I feel like your mind sometimes begins to invent problems that don't, you get what I mean? You start focusing on negative energies that don't really need the time. They don't have any productive value to it. And I was noticing that I had this habit of every single morning, I would get the phone, I'd start scrolling through social media. 10 minutes later, my dopamine levels were shot. I'm having like negative thoughts about because somebody posted whatever. And that's how you're starting the day. Yeah. And then you wonder why throughout, I'm like telling myself, you wonder why throughout the day you're having anxiety and you can't focus on certain things and this ADHD. I'm not here to say if it's true. Whatever. Like to me, I look at it as like I can fix it, or you can improve it, And it started with, in the mornings, don't reach for the phone. Take a couple of breaths. I like making coffee. I like drinking coffee. I like the smell of coffee. I can look forward to that. Okay, go for the coffee. Don't go for the phone. So then doing that. And in the evenings, the last thing I would do before I go to bed, scrolling away. And that brain is just doing this. And then I have a hard time falling asleep. And I'm like, well, yeah, like go run a sprint and then try to go to sleep right away and tell me how successful you think you're going to be. So in the evenings, I would also read books. Like I read books, I stack them in the mornings and in the evenings, because in the mornings, it's a way to get the brain, as it's winding up, you're kind of feeding it positive informations, which is where the thoughts a lot of times where it's sourced from. And in the evenings, you're helping it to slow it down, because your focus is not coming back to like, okay, we're focusing on a singular thing. And then kind of eases you into sleep. I don't know. I don't have any science to back this up, but it's like if you're winding up with positive and you're winding down with positive, when you go into the subconscious, like it can't hurt.
No, definitely not. I don't think so.
Yeah, the book thing is one that I've got like a weird opinion on. I think it's to each their own. It's everybody's different, and there's definitely got to be a value to sitting and reading and slowing your mind down for sure. For me, I'm always looking for like efficiency and time hacks when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel like audiobooks are really powerful in the fact that I feel like it's a muscle just like reading that you can get better and better at. And if I can be listening to an audiobook while I'm running, and I do get into a zone when I'm running that I can be absorbing and listening to it, and I've got it sped up, and it's just like reading a book. I'll definitely get distracted by something and be like, man, what was that whole last 5 minutes I was listening to?
Yeah.
But the cool thing is like, okay, I'll just
rewind.
I'll go back and listen to it again. Or if a lot of times I'll listen through a whole audiobook without doing that, knowing that I'm missing stuff, and then go back through it again and like go back through it several times or a certain chapter for a specific reason. The time and the efficiency of it and filling dead space, whether I'm driving or whatever, that's always been what I've leaned into. And I know that's like not the I don't know, mainstream knowledge or whatever on reading, but I feel like it's an improved version of reading, as far as the fact that if I don't have the discipline to set the time aside in the morning to do it then or whenever, like it's the easier way out. Like, so it's probably not better, but at least like I'm getting it in. The knowledge is coming in.
Yeah.
It's almost like I look at it now as like the AirPod and the phone combined. If you're intentionally, instead of listening to Fighter and the Kid and them just like talk shit or something like that, like listen to an audiobook about business while I'm filling that time in the car. At least I'm not, or even worse, like listening to like a murder podcast or something, or a lot of the like nonsense that's out there, which some people enjoy and cool. It's an entertaining thing. But if I'm filling that time that I would be sitting in the bathroom, driving in the car, waiting in line somewhere, listening to a self-help audiobook, whether it's about running or business or whatever, that information's getting into my brain and it's getting in there a different way. But I feel like that's like a huge opportunity that we have right now, that like the vast majority of humans ever alive never even had the opportunity to get information into their brain that quickly. Not to say there's not a place for reading. Reading is definitely valuable. But for me, it's like the amount of audiobooks I've listened to, like the amount of time that would have required for me to sit down and read those books. Like, I don't know where I would find it.
To me, it just depends on the content, like what book I'm consuming. Like there's certain books, like when I was just installing, that I wouldn't listen to while I was installing, or if I knew I was going to get my attention drawn away because I want to really soak in what's being said. Like for me, like Jordan Peterson. Anytime I listen to one of his books, like I have to be on a long run where I know I'm left to my own thoughts, to where I can actually focus in on what he's talking about. Because when he's going in depth and things, I'm just like, if I'm like at work trying to do some tasks, I'm listening to that, like it lasts like 2 minutes. I have to turn it off because it's like, all right, I heard what you said, but I need to go back and listen to that. And like, yeah, podcast was definitely, it's kind of the easy go to. And again, also that depends on technically who's on Rogan's podcast. If it's someone I really want to pay attention to what they're listening to, like when Trump's podcast dropped, I was getting things together, I had family in town, and like I never had time to actually sit there and listen to it. So I held off on listening to it until I had a drive, was a week and a half ago I drove to California. I waited until I did that drive. I knew I had a 3.5 hour drive. I put my headphone in. I knew my kid was listening to music. My wife listened to music. I put the headphone in. I listened to that podcast all the way through to where I actually intentionally listened to exactly everything that was being said. I actually I've never actually heard a format of actually letting him speak on not a stage or anything like that, to where it was just like a human conversation. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Even with JD Vance's, I listened to his on the way back. And that was the first actually any kind of content I consumed of him talking. And it was like, you sound like a normal dude. I like that. Like,
dude, they both did a bunch of them that were similar. Like,
well, and
Vance was on
I
everybody's.
I want to go through and listen to those.
Even on
too.
Theo Vaughn's was great. like
mixed with humor,
fantastic. Like that,
Yeah.
JD Vance killed it on there. Like that whole conversation was amazing. And yeah, like you don't get that kind of exposure to politicians ever. That's going to change the game on like what everybody does moving forward on
you'd hope so.
especially what the results ended up being.
Yeah, I mean, like there was way more interviews done on independent podcasts than they did on like mainstream traditional.
I think just the
platforms.
views on Rogan, Rogan with Trump, just the views on that like dwarfed everything Kamala Harris did combined.
Yeah.
Like when you look at viewership and how
it's
much
it's a different medium.
Yeah,
it's
crazy
forward, man.
It seemed like a regular conversation. I think that was a huge miss on her part, trying to, I mean, she should have done everything in her power to get down there and sit in that room and have a conversation so you can appeal as being a damn human being.
And I think
Yeah.
Joe would have been
Normal
fair
person.
too. Joe's smart enough. He wouldn't have been attacking.
Well, that's where he
It
even
would have
pushed
been
back
fair.
on Trump when he mentioned about it. And Trump was like, I don't think she could do it. And he's like, I just want to have a conversation. Like, I just want to talk to you.
He was even open if they put restrictions on the conversations. He was like, I just want to talk to her as a human. We don't have to talk about politics. And that's one of the things with Joe Rogan. He's the greatest conversationalist of all time. You know, he's the GOAT of that, because like like when you take someone like Trump, and he's been on several podcasts. I think he was on the Nelk Boys, but he's been in other podcasts, and I've listened to him. But when you get in with Rogan, it's just I don't know. It's like Rogan has this like special power to just get people to be comfortable, and it's a genuine conversation, and you literally feel like a fly in the wall. Like it doesn't you don't feel like they're putting on a show for, it just feels like a conversation between two people.
Yeah.
And you just happen to be tuning in, you know, and like Joe Rogan's really good at creating that kind of like environment and energy. So yeah, man, it's I've enjoyed he did a really good job on doing the podcast there. I mean, with everybody, it's so crazy how he just mixes with everyone, man. He's like water.
Yeah.
Comedians, scientists, like politicians.
Well, I think it's because it's so authentic, right? There's nobody scheduling it for him. He's having on who he wants to have on, and then he's asking genuine questions that he wants to have answered. And that's why it is what it is, right? Like, he doesn't have people on from the UFC because he's trying to build up his channel. It's because he's genuinely interested in it.
That's
right?
what he says too.
Or the scientists, right? Same thing. Like, and I feel like for me, the idea of doing this for us was the same thing. Like, let's just have conversations like that. Like, let's have people on that we're genuinely interested in, and there's going to be a mutual benefit for both sides. Like, we're going to learn something. Hopefully they're going to learn something, and then the audience can learn something from it too. Like, that was my grand idea, and it's just seeing that. And then you like look at the benefits of it. Rogan wasn't trying to build like a media empire. That's where he started from.
Yeah.
But then because he has so many different people on from so many different avenues of life that he's just interested in, that's why it grew. Anytime he has anybody on, a percentage of that person's audience that's looking that person's name up on YouTube or Spotify is going to get recommended their interview with Rogan.
Yeah.
And now they might listen to that conversation. There's several people that are like pretty controversial, or at least I would have considered controversial in 2015, 16, that I would have never listened to more than like a 1 minute clip and been like, oh, screw that person that he's had on. I listened to them talk for 2 hours and I'm like, oh, that person's not the devil I thought they were. Like, I don't disagree. I don't agree with them on everything that they think, but I agree with them a lot more than I thought I did. Yeah. And I can actually see where they're coming from now. Like, that's been the magic, I think, of that. And it's good to see that it's spreading out and more people are realizing like, oh, a comment on a post on TikTok or Instagram or X can be taken out of context. And that's how the comment section gets turned into just a dumpster fire. But when you have a 2 hour long genuine conversation, like, you can't get taken out of context. Like, even when they tried to like cancel him for being racist or whatever, when they pulled the compilation video together, it was like nobody was buying it.
Yeah.
Because everybody's heard him for hours and hours and hours, have all these different people on. And you can go back and look at the full conversation and realize that somebody just took something where he was quoting somebody else saying that word, and then they threw it all together to look as bad as possible.
Yeah.
And it's like, it made him uncancelable because like the genuine him is out there. He's not hiding anything.
Well, that goes for a lot of them too. Like, even like Jordan Peterson too, when he was being called, racist and all those things. Like, go back and listen to his content.
Yeah.
Please point out anywhere that any things you're accusing him of that he is. Because if you just listen to his content, it's like, nope, not at all. I don't see where you're pulling that from. You're just trying to create a narrative that's wasn't there to begin with.
Yeah. One of the virtues of success too that I really admire with Rogan, and I admire that when I see it in other people too, is consistency. Like, just being consistent and showing up and doing it regardless of like how you feel about it. And so like with Joe Rogan, he's been really consistent. I don't know how many years at this point, like what is it? It's 3 people in his team, right? Jamie, Joe, and this or something. He's got a very small staff.
Reaches out and do scheduling. Yeah, but it's only like 3 people.
Yeah, it's like it's very small. And then like yesterday morning, I was at the gym and I bumped into Austin Cook, and Austin. I don't know if you guys met him before or not, but
maybe.
Yeah,
Austin
WFCT,
Cook,
we
Institute.
talked a little bit. Yeah, we're actually in talks with him where he's coming out here soon. He's going to be on.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Company?
Huh?
Company?
Tinstitute.
Yeah, but I know exactly.
We struck a nerve?
No.
We've been trying to get him on. He just didn't know his name.
It's just there only being used to only be WSCT and technically SEMA, and now we have so many more events now.
He's killing it.
It's hard for me to put, like, I hear someone's name, I'm like, I'm pretty sure I know who that is. And as soon as I see a face, I'm like, yep, I know exactly who that is. It's just hard for me to, like, that's one problem. One thing I got to get better at is actually remembering people's names and actually putting the face to it instantly, to where when I hear it, I can picture it in my head. Because there are plenty of people that I'll walk up to or walk up to me at any one of the events, And they're like, "What's up?" And I'm like, I feel like a dick. I'm like, "Hey, you." And like, I'm slowly starting to search for a name badge. I'm like, as soon as I see the name or I hear the name, I'm like, oh, I'm an idiot. Like, of course I knew that was your name, but for some reason I couldn't recall. Like, my memory recall for something like that is unfortunately horrible. And I'm trying to start
saying it's good.
Yeah,
mine's getting better, man. But it's like it just happened.
It's tough, man.
It happened right now. Like I'll have the memory lapses, and I'll have my Joe Biden moments on the names too. But I was at I was doing commentary, or even right now, and I'm like, now see their badge. I'm like, who's next? Okay, is Jose from California? Got it. Then I'll go over here. I'm looking at the timer. I was like, what's his name again? And I have to go back and ask, Jose. There's like the last one that we went up there. I'm up there and I go, and the final competitor competing at the XBL Windshield Film Challenge from California. Hey, what's your name? James, starting at 5. I'm like, it happens, bro. You just got to roll with it.
I think that goes kind of, and it's something that I think everybody can improve on, but the whole like 150 people thing, like if you go back and look at humans and how we've evolved, like if you go back and you look, like tribes of like most the time throughout history, it was like no more than like 150, 300 people. Like it's really hard as you start knowing more and more and more people to actually just hold that data in your brain for some reason. Like over 150 close relationships is kind of hard to maintain. But with social media and us putting ourselves out there and going to all these events, we've met more than 150 people in the tin industry. And if you haven't had multiple interactions with that person, sometimes it's tough.
Yeah, okay, so those people, yes, but there are certain people that it's like, I've known you for years, and why can't I remember your name?
You've met 100 more in the last year at the 4 different events you've gone to, and that's
still
gotten
gonna beat myself
out the back.
Like, I'm still gonna beat myself up.
I'm mad about it at jiu-jitsu. Like there's people I've trained jiu-jitsu with for years now that I'm like, what's up, man? Like,
there's a little technique. One of the things that helped me out, obviously, in my situation with announcing, is like I remember people's names more because like now I get to see them compete, so I'm kind of associating certain things with them. But the one thing that I've been most successful in remembering people's names is like I like to, in my head, I like to brand people. Obviously, like the entertainment aspect of it is like, Dean Mitchell. When I first met him, I call him Mean Machine Dean because I'm like, oh, that's catchy. I'll remember Mean Machine Dean before I'll remember Dean Mitchell.
Yep.
And that actually started even before then. Whenever I didn't know any politicians back in 2015 during that election, 2016, and until Trump was the one that was like, the Lion Ted, Little Marco, Crooked Hillary. I'm just like, it stuck. Like it's memorable. So I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. And even before then, dude, like my influences with wrestling, mean Gene Okerlund, like the announcer or whatever, and there's like,
they're not doing that for an accident. They figured out that it works.
It's a branding thing because you remember like a brand name more than you remember like sometimes an actual name, especially if it's a difficult name that's not common.
That's probably where Trump picked it up, honestly.
Because it's marketing forever. And it's marketing. Trump is a master brander, and so that's why I think for him it was because I've heard him discuss policies with I can't remember which one exactly it was, but they were discussing a certain policy where like the name that was suggested, he said that's not going to work because I think it was like something about nuclear energy, and he goes like, the name, it's a good policy, but the name's going to get attacked, and because he understands branding and how people are going to consume a certain name or how it's going to come across, and so, but it's helped me to remember people's names whenever I'll meet somebody and I'll just brand them. Like another example is Dane Gregory. You guys know who he is? Ceramic Pro.
Probably would recognize the face.
Yeah, so I mean, Dane Gregory, he's one of the trainers for Ceramic Pro, probably one of their top, most esteemed trainers up there. But he was one of the judges or one of the trainers that I had, brought in for Tinner Battles 2021 back in Houston. And at the time, I was branding everybody because we had this thing where we cartooned everybody. So I was coming up with names for everyone. So I'm like, Dane Gregory. I'm like, there's a dog, the Great Dane. I was like, I'll call him like, not that he's a dog or anything like that. God, I shouldn't have said that. No, but I mean like the Great Dane Gregory. I was like, it sounds good when you announce it, the Great Dane Gregory. I was like, okay, that's cool. I like that. Marco, the film trainer, Cazorla. It's like
for certainty.
Yeah,
it's genius. Yeah, I try to do that like jiu-jitsu's a spot that I've done that. Like I'll get someone's name from them, like I'll try to repeat it back to them, and then I'll try to find some type of association. Like one guy at the gym specifically is a doctor, but he's not like a medical doctor. He's just like got a doctorate, and he's like the head of a university.
So like Joe Biden?
So everybody calls him Dr. Gregory. I was like, okay, it's rather than just memorizing Gregory. Like, I'm just gonna always call you Dr. Gregory.
Yeah.
And that, stuff like that definitely helps.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu is one of the things I started to go back into, because I had did it for maybe like a year and a half, and this is like a long time ago. And mentally, it put me in a healthiest state. Physically, put me in the best shape of my life at that time. And then, I just started getting busy with work, and so I just excuses started rolling in and procrastination. So I stopped going. Recently, I started going back in there, but that's one of the techniques. When I went back in there, I was like, don't tell yourself you're not good with names.
Yeah.
Because then you won't be good with names. So I'm like, fine, it's a challenge. I'll take it on. So now when I meet somebody that I roll with, like, what's your name? It's Richard. Okay. Rolling Richard. Okay, Richard, gotcha. In my head, I'm thinking rolling Richard. What's your name? Nathan. I'm like, no tap Nathan. Got it. He's gonna be no tap Nathan, Yeah. And I'll remember.
And then I won't be afraid either to, like, if that happens and we roll, I always make sure when we're done, when we shake hands, if I forgot, like, what was your name again? Like, and I'll just ask again.
Yeah.
Like, don't be afraid to ask again.
Yeah. It is what it is.
So if you do that consistently, it works.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing, is getting out of your comfort zone. And it's okay to be like, hey, what was your name again? And just being okay with the fact that it's okay not to remember that person's name, especially if you haven't, like, your interaction is once a year or twice a year when it comes to any of the conferences and stuff. But it's just, for me, I always feel bad because they always know my name. And it's like, I feel like a dick, the fact that I don't remember your name. And that's the hardest part for me, is like, that's where I get hung up. And it's then if anything, the embarrassment sets in. It's like, especially if it's someone I've known for years, and I'm only seeing you once or twice a year, but like, I've known you for years. You've known me for a very long time, and you definitely know my name. And I know I should know your name. And that's the part where it gets me, where I feel bad. I'm just like, I should remember this.
So you're going to come train tomorrow morning? That actually happened.
I didn't even know that. Oh, there was something mentioned about
7 tomorrow morning.
Where, here?
No, at Armando's gym.
Shoot me a message.
Yeah, he's supposed to be posting it out on his page today. I'm gonna share it on the company's page, and then everybody that's already said they're interested, I'll make sure we, like, DM and give the information to.
What time?
7. Did he post it already? Oh, and you already shared it? Man, Jordan's on it. 7 tomorrow.
Pull that up, Jordan.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not partying tonight. I'm going to the party. That doesn't mean I have to party.
That's one of the things, when I made that kind of switch ever since that role was presented for me at XDC, going back to that ultimate version. I don't really smoke anymore. I dropped, like, those things, because what I started to, again, this is just speaking for me on my behalf, I was wanting to get laser focused on building these habits. I'm also realizing too, I'm 32 now. I'm not in my 20s anymore. I used to be that young. Everything I usually always did, I was a young guy doing it. When I started my company at the flea markets, I was the youngest tenant. When I moved into the shop, I was the youngest, person there. Which I don't really give two shits about being there. Like, there's sometimes, like, there's a couple of friends that I've had throughout the past, because I started falling into the same kind of mindset of, like, oh, I'm the youngest here. I'm doing okay. I'm doing just fine. It's just like, pat yourself twice on the back and then get the fuck over it. Because once you grow complacent, that, like, oh, I can, because that's what happened with me. I'm like, oh, I'm the youngest one doing this. I'm okay. It's like, fuck that. Like, it's not about, your measuring stick isn't other people. It's like you.
Yep.
Get out. You're young. Who cares? Go out and get after it. But, I'm realizing now that 32 years old, no longer in my 20s, 10 years from now, I'll be in my 40s. It's like, okay, that youth window is starting to close. And I don't know, dude. I don't know what it's going to be like when I'm in my 40s. I don't know. I mean, that's the thing. Sometimes that's what actually created urgency.
Yeah. I just turned 40.
No, but the cool thing about...
I feel great right now. Like, I feel better than I did in my late 20s, because I actually took care of myself for most of my 30s.
I've seen, like, here's the one thing that's actually been pretty rewarding. It's like, when I go to train jiu-jitsu and I see some of the older guys, like, there are guys into their 50s, 55, they're rolling in there, man. They're still flexible. They're still moving around. And I'm like, okay. And yet at the same time, you'll see people that are kind of in their 40s that look like they're close to getting 60. So it's obviously how you take care of yourself.
I think the consistency is the big thing. Even, like, you look at runners. That's the big thing that got me into running. was the idea that like, man, if you look at people that have been consistent when running their whole life and never stopped, that's the people that are at these 100-mile races in their 70s, finishing a 100-mile race stronger than you in your 30s or 40s, like where you're not even finishing it. And they don't even look like it's a big deal because they stayed so consistent. It's like this idea that you get old and you can't do things anymore. No, it's really you stopped doing stuff, so your body loses the ability, and now it's hard to gain it back. But if you stay consistent and keep doing it and do it in a smart way where you're not trying to like kill yourself and you're doing it for the long-term health consequence of it, like, and you stay active and mobile. If you look at the older people that are like that, like look, Rogan's in what, his 50s? And
he doesn't even look like it, dude. He looks in shape. Like, and he's super consistent.
Because that's the thing. He's consistent. It's every morning thing, no matter what, because he knows that clock is ticking, and if you just sit around and get complacent, you're gonna be that typical 50-year-old that's sitting around with a beer belly claiming that you can't run anymore, or you can't lift, or you can't do jujitsu. Like, but if you keep doing it, like we got the pull-up bar in there. Every time I come into this shop, every single time I come into this shop, I'm jumping on the pull-up bar. I'm doing 5 to 7 pull-ups, and then I'm gonna do it again before I leave. And if I'm here for any extended period of time, I'm gonna jump up there several times throughout the day, because I remember when I couldn't do a pull-up. And I've got it in my head now that if every day I do at least a couple sets of 5 pull-ups, I'm never going to be able to not do pull-ups. And like, that's just like a little hack thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, but if you're intentional with setting those hacks up into your life, like even getting my kids to go running with me, or my dog that I had, I got him specifically because he's a dog that needed to be ran a lot. And like, if I get a dog that is high energy and has to be run, I'm gonna take care of him before I might even take care of myself, and make sure I take him on a run. And that was like my hack to even getting back into running and getting healthy. I was like, what can you find that you can do that's like a little hack? You don't have to, you could just be disciplined. But some, like, add those hacks in. Why not? Like,
they call it, I mean, in Atomic Habits, they call it habit stacking. It's like you like by the way, this is why I started with the coffee in the mornings, because I knew that I wanted to get to the gym. That was my goal. But I wasn't really motivated by going to the gym in the mornings. But I do like drinking coffee. So then in the mornings, it's like you habit stack. You stack your certain habits, like the things that you want to do. It's like, okay, I could look forward to making that coffee because I enjoy it. Do that. And usually the process of getting up and moving around eventually carries you into doing the rest of the things too. There's also the 2-minute. Have any of you guys read the Atomic Habits?
No? I refuse to listen to it because I'm holding myself accountable.
You got to be out of bed in like so many minutes though, right? Like once you wake up.
I mean, I don't know that it talked about like
I've heard
necessarily,
that from someone
but
else.
I think Jocko Willink was one that has mentioned something like that. But with the certain habits or tasks that you got to do, there's a 2-minute rule. So to give you an example, would be like, if you have to go do laundry and you have to go fold your clothes and you're like putting it off, procrastinating it, it's like break that into a 2-minute task. Like, can you just get up and separate your, can you take the clothes from here to here? Or just separate the clothes. Just aim for doing that. And generally, almost every time, I'm like, okay, that's easy. How much am I committing? This is going to take you 10 seconds, 10, 20 seconds. Generally, the process of initiating that, then I'm like, well, I'm already here. Might as well just finish. And the same thing with the gym. Like, that's how when I started getting back into the gym, it was a little tough because, dude, by the way, I think I've told you this. Throughout the beginning of the year when we were leading into Tenor Battles 24, and like you were constantly tagging me in these like workout videos and mentally, I was in a different headspace because at that time there was just, God, it was incredibly stressful. Not only from running my shop in Houston and getting into the busier season, but everything that came with like all the responsibility with Tenor Battles, with creating these new competitions and contacting AV companies, sourcing the flat glass stands, dealing with like coordinating stuff with the Wiz Castle the people, like talent going in there and then trying to organize all that entire production show. I was overwhelmed to the point where I'm like, working out was kind of one of the last things on my mind. Ironically, was probably the thing I needed most. And when you were constantly tagging me, it was good that you did, but it was definitely like a little annoying reminder of like, damn, like I know I should be doing this, but I'm not. And, but now it's like coming.
As soon as you guys brought that up, I was like, that was a bad idea. Like, cause I was in the middle of like, I just started my training regimen. And like, that is one thing when I have my training regimen, it's either a 4-month or 6-month block leading up to that 100 miler. I know what I'm getting myself into the 100 milers now, to where it's like, I know if I'm more consistent with that training block, I know that day is going to suck a little less. Like it's going to suck no matter what. Like running 100 miles, no matter what. Yes, it's fun. It has its extreme highs. It has its extreme lows. But anyone, like I enjoy it, but it is a suck fest no matter what. Like you get past, for me now, it's like as soon as you get to like mile 50, it's like, oh, cool, I'm halfway done. I have 50 more miles to go. This is like, I still have 12, 14 plus hours to knock out right now. So it's like definitely having to cut it down in small regiments. But as soon as like that was thrown out there, I was like, I'm going to tag everyone I possibly can. And I was way more consistent with my Instagram at the time. And I need to get back to that. I just need to stop talking again. I need to stop talking. I just need to start doing it. And like that was, if anything, that helped me keep myself accountable too, because it was like something where it's like I wanted to poke and prod. I wanted to poke you. I wanted to poke Marco. I wanted to poke Dean. Like all those guys, Cash. I was just trying to poke everyone I possibly could. It's like I'm up. Gotcha. Like even like I think Jordan Shady. I posted one morning. It was I think 2:38 at the time because I had a long run or something. And he goes like, "Are you just going to bed?" I'm like, "No, I'm just got up." What's wrong with you? I'm like,
You're wild.
you got to do what you got to do. And I need to get back into that because it's the same thing. Like even like the past, I can relate a little bit because I couldn't imagine running a business and then putting that kind of event on. Like that shit's crazy. Like I was just trying to go to events and then try to get this done and then run a business. And like, unfortunately, the thing that's kind of fallen to the wayside was working out. Like I've had like stints of like 2 to 3 weeks where I kind of got back on the horse. And then all of a sudden it's like, I go to an event, which even at the events, especially when I'm competing, I make sure I work out every morning, at least a run, because I know like I have to compete. I got to try to be as sharp as I humanly possibly can and at least getting my heart rate going. Like even with doing like the podcasts, like I try to make sure every time we sit down and do podcasts, like that morning, no matter what, I get some kind of something in. Like this morning, I only did 2 miles, but I got my heart rate up, did some push-ups, and I felt better this morning. And not that I felt bad yesterday.
That's exactly what I did today. 2 miles.
Yesterday and today. Just do something. I decided to get out and go do something. I know at the time when I'm trying to fight myself to go do it, I'm like, I'd rather just sleep or that. I know I'm selling myself short because I know I'll operate so much better if I just get it done. That's the hard part. Get up, get it done.
That's the main reason why I work out in the mornings too. You know, it's funny. They say like I have seen somewhere like a sign of, and I don't think it's a negative way, but like a sign of aging was you're no longer working out to like look good. You're working out to feel good.
Yes.
And that's the reason why I like in the mornings. You tell me if like you guys experience the same, but I like one of the things that in the mornings when I wake up, it's a different day when I don't go to this. For whatever reason, physical stress just has a way of like think of it like you have like this lazy armor, like a laziness shell. And every morning you wake up and it's on you. Like as you get healthier, it's maybe not as thick, but it's still on you. Yeah. And I notice when I wake up in the mornings and I don't go work out, I have a slightly different day than when I do wake up in the mornings. I go to the gym, I break a sweat, I'm pushing, I'm like, heart rate is up. Then I come out of that. It's like there was this release of whether it's tension or sluggishness. It's just like it's gone and I'm ready to attack the day. Does that happen with you guys too?
1,000%. Yeah. A day that I don't get up and run, I can feel the difference. I think it's like a combination of things. It's momentum. You got that first win in for the day. Like, and even like doing cold plunging too. It's like cold plunge, then run. Mm-hmm. Like winning that mental battle of like, I did not want to do this. I wanted to lay down and just rest for another 30 minutes, hour, take my time to get ready and just go to work. But getting that running, I think getting your heart rate elevated, getting blood flowing. I think a big thing to working out, especially cardio for me in my mind, because I don't really lift very often. The pull-ups and push-ups is like the most I do. I'd like to add that into my routine. But for me, cardio in the morning, from like listening to different books and podcasts and stuff on people that are like really into health and nutrition, I think the big superpower with cardio in the morning is it's forcing you to breathe deeply. And you're actually like oxygenating your body. Because it doesn't make sense to me why going and having a morning that I run 8 miles in the morning, I feel like I have 10 times more energy throughout that day, all the way through till the end of the day, than a day that I don't get up and run 5, 6, 8 miles, whatever the distance may be. Because it sounds like it would be the opposite of that.
Yeah. I've had people say this.
Listening to the people that have really good success with sitting down and doing meditation and really like heavy, deep breath work it sounds like it's almost the exact same thing. So running in my mind is almost like a little bit of a hack to make yourself breathe deeply, because every cell in your body needs oxygen to create energy. What is it? ATP.
ATP energy.
Yeah. Like at the
and the
cellular
mitochondria.
level.
I remember that from
so like at the
school.
cellular, that's the other thing I think that why cold plunging is so beneficial. It's actually stimulating your mitochondria to start firing, and that's what's like warming your body back up. So you're literally at a cellular level having your body start to create extra energy. So you have a surplus of energy in your body at that point, where I think that's like probably the scientific thing that's happening on top of the mental win that you just start, and now you got momentum going into the day.
Yeah, who's the guy that says embrace the suck?
God, it's Goggins, isn't it? No,
somebody. I
remember one of them. There's probably multiple.
Dude, it's like, so one thing that I've been like picking up, or I've picked up for some time, even with whether it's working out, cold plunging, jujitsu. There's something about going through sucky things that I feel like almost, and maybe it might be a dopamine thing that almost like resets. Like
Andrew Huberman. I was gonna say Huberman.
That's him. Yeah,
he's been coming up of it. Yeah, he talks about the science of it too. Like he even talks about Goggins in a conversation with Goggins, how there's literally like they've identified a part of the brain that is that like, I don't want to do this, but if you do it, you actually grow that area of the brain. And it's like a muscle almost. So the more you do things that you don't want to do, the stronger you get at actually, and that's where self-discipline is like actually it's reinforcing itself. The more you can be self-disciplined, the more, like, I'm sure Jocko doesn't even have a morning anymore where he even considers just laying in bed. He's been doing it so consistently for so long that picture of his watch is on Instagram every single day, no matter what. Like, so he's just built that mechanism up. This is like, I definitely still have my moments where I slack off and I might eat like crap, even though I know I shouldn't, or I'll have a morning where I planned on going for a run and I decide not to. Like, I'm not perfect by any means. I definitely have my ups and downs when that goes, but I know when I'm consistently doing it, I feel a whole hell of a lot better, and I know I'm more productive at everything in my life. Work, with my family, with my wife, with everything. So,
dude, like 2 weeks ago, I had done this blackout project. We redid an exterior. I had a team set up for it, but one of the guys, he wasn't able to make it work. He had to take care of something else. So I was like, okay, well, now we were for a day. We were understaffed, so me and my installer Pete, we were laying film, and I had him on a scaffold. So he's kind of doing for him was more ground level because he's now elevated. For me, it was these tall windows going up and down, dude. Like just, and so at that time, we were putting in like 12-hour shifts. And dude, when you're doing flat glass 12-hour shifts, and I really wasn't used to that kind of pace. Lower back is like, it's not my muscles that weren't holding up; it was my joints. So I wasn't going to the gyms. I wasn't hitting the gym because as soon as I woke, I was trying to maximize our time to complete this project. So as soon as I woke up, go to work in the mornings, try to stay up there as late, come back, joints are hurting. I just want to eat something and go to sleep. So for that week, my habits got a little bit out of place. And then that weekend, I remember I was eating some stuff that I shouldn't have been eating them, maybe some comfort foods. And it's like that bug, man. The lazy bug started to kind of creep in and starting to like, I call it like I don't even know what, but you give into like the cheap dopamine is what I call it. Cheap dopamine hints, like go for the burger because I just need something. I'm tired. I just want to get whatever. So it started to build on it a little. And then by Monday the following week, I felt like, fuck, man, I fucked up. Like I don't feel like I'm in the stride anymore. I don't feel like I'm in this routine anymore. And the odd thing about that, as I started getting towards the evening, just like, you know what? You should go do jujitsu. Just go to a class. I'm like, fuck, I don't want to roll around and they're going to make us do all these drills and I'm going to get choked out. And just like, good. You fucking deserve it. You haven't been on your shit. Go. So I'm like, I went there. They started making this like, but they started us with like doing these runarounds in the mat and then doing like rollings and then shrimps and bridges and all that. Sure enough, once I started breaking a sweat, like it was in the moment when I was going through all that, I'm like, man, this kind of sucks. I'm like, dude, embrace it because like past this hurdle, it's going to feel good. I'm like, I don't know how much better I'm going to feel. But once we started doing all that, then we started rolling and then people are choking you. Now you're like breaking a sweat. I came out like, remember, I had a couple of days where I messed up my routine. I wasn't eating so good. That Monday, I really that was not feeling good physically and mentally. But I did one training session on jujitsu that I got out of the class like, where the hell's all this energy been? Like now it's like it's 8 o'clock. I need to get ready for bed. But I'm like, dude, like I feel like I'm getting ready to start a day. I don't know what it did, but that entire day was low energy, lazy feeling. Did 1 hour jujitsu starting at 7 p.m. Came out of it 8 p.m. Like, what? I got so much energy now. What the hell?
I can completely relate.
I wouldn't beat yourself up in the fact that, like, that's one thing I really enjoy about flat glass is that when you do have a project that you are laying that much square footage, that's a workout. Like 100%, it's a workout.
Yeah.
I mean, either being that many square feet or it's even like safety film. Like the one thing I had to tell one of my installers, because he's like, oh, I hate safety film. Like, you know, my shoulders are always, you know, hurt. I'm like, why are your shoulders hurting? Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, using your core. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, dude,
oh yeah.
You should be literally planting, turn. And he's like, oh, I didn't think of that. I was like, dude, I love safety film because I thought I was not thinking, I knew I was getting an ab workout every single time I did it. Is that
but it's funny, it ties back to jiu-jitsu for me, because after starting to train jiu-jitsu, I started thinking about that while on installs. Like, why am I smoking my arms out? Like,
it does. It gets you to do that. Yeah.
Like, it totally got me thinking about that. And I totally install that way now, where I'm intentionally making sure that I'm using my whole body to push into it rather than just push with your arms. But yeah, that's.
Well, I think initially I wasn't even thinking about that way. And then within like training for running and like actually starting to get further down the rabbit hole of running for me and like learning how to actually engage different parts of my body to offload the stress to where I'm not just running strictly on certain sets of muscles for 100 miles. It's like at certain time I started realizing that, like, depending on how my posture is or where I'm standing, I can engage my lower back, I can engage my glutes, I can engage my core to where I'm offloading that pressure off my legs because I have 100 miles to go. Like I didn't realize I was doing it during tinning. Is like, you should be engaging almost everything while you're doing it. So you're not just smoking one part of your body, or like, you're just like, oh, my elbow hurts so much. It's like, well, how are you squeegeeing? And then you'll see someone do it. It's like, well, yeah, you're putting all your pressure into that one joint. You see what you're overextending yourself when it comes down to it. But when it comes to laying that much square footage, like, that's a workout. Without a doubt, that's 100% a workout. You're laying that much square footage in a day, and let alone you're going up and down a ladder. You're doing a stair stepper.
I'm gonna think about
probably smart to prioritize sleep, honestly, because when I felt the worst is when we've had projects that we have to work like during the day and have the project that we do at night, and all of a sudden you're only getting 1 or 2 hours of sleep. Like, we had an auto project this summer that required us for like a week and a half to like work all day and then go spend 11 o'clock at night till like 3 a.m. installing cars. The sleep that I missed during that like week or week and a half, it took me like a month to recover from. So it's like, I feel like if you could prioritize sleep, especially for a big flat glass job like that, over going to work out, and realize that you're getting a workout while you're doing that, and that's probably why you feel so drained at the end of the day. Because you just put in 12 hours of hard work. You know,
I tracked it on my fitness tracker because I showed it to Marco. I told him, like, look, Marco, this is what 12 hours of laying flat would do. And it was like kind of the equivalent of whenever I would go to train jujitsu 1 hour and then do a little bit of some weights or a little bit of running. So, but yeah, it's funny that you like mentioning about jujitsu too. It gets you to think about the mechanics of the body. That's the one thing that I've noticed with jujitsu. And it's in my mind everywhere I go. Like, even getting in and out of a vehicle, every time I open the door, I always hook my foot on the other side, because it's happened where you open your door and the wind blows it.
Yep.
And it's so that I was like, I don't like that. That's unpredictable. So every time I open the door, I always have my hook on the bottom of it so that then I can control the distance.
Yeah, most people don't think that you can use your feet like hands mostly.
Yeah, exactly. And jiu-jitsu has gotten you to, like,
you have to.
Dude, there's been times when like you're grappling, like, you know, you're on the ground, somebody's, you know, on top of you, and you can only do so much with this. But then if you're flexible enough, you can get that foot coming up here, break a grip, or push them back.
You know where I use it for? That's really interesting. I caught myself doing and realized I probably would have never done it in the past. Measuring big, tall windows. Like, I'll literally put the tape measure down to the bottom of the window and use my foot to hold it in place. And like, It's like, like, I probably wouldn't have done that in the past, but like, boom, I've got my foot to actually be an extra hand, basically.
And that's the cool thing. Like, with like one of the things with jiu-jitsu, it gets you to like think of your four limbs, like almost like hands, basically. And if you've got like I feel like if I wasn't doing this, my concern with doing the foot thing would be the balance. I was like, if you got the balance down, then all of a sudden you maneuver your body differently. And that's what also comes with the having a healthy routine. It's like you have the confidence and ability to do those kinds of things physically. And like, dude, that gives you a level of confidence to attack, you know, goals, attack just a regular day. And the other thing, one of the other reasons for like, you know, when I was thinking about the XDC role is in this, to me, I call it you versus ultimate you, because I just in my head, I'm like, there is a current you and then there is the ultimate you, and the current you can do the things to get to the ultimate you, and that ultimate you is always evolving, because you know you're never going to be perfect, but you can always be better. So like that journey has also helped me to like not only I saw it, that role to me was kind of like, okay, it's a good short-term goal to go for, but the ultimate you is like the long one, and the benefits for that too is like, well, I not only want to be great for that role, but then I think about my team as well. And you know, starting a shop as an installer, like for you guys had this established before, right? Yeah. So like, I don't know where, and I don't know much of the history, but whenever you're starting off and you're just an installer and don't really know the business side of things, like you kind of just revert to what you're good at, and which is just installing. Mm-hmm. But as your company grows, or as you move up in different levels, each level is just a different set of challenges that you have to solve for. So going from a one-person shop to like, oh, now I have enough customers, I need to get a bigger space. So then it's like, okay, you got to get a bigger space. But like now I have a bigger space, I can push more volume. Then your skill set or your focus has to shift from just being an installer to now I got to onboard a team, and there's challenges that come with how do you hire, and then once you get them in, what's your quality control and stuff like. So then it's like, okay, cool, we got 3 people, or I got another installer. Damn, I can't handle these phone calls. I got to hire an admin. It's like, okay, go back to how's your hiring abilities and how's your hiring skills, and so, but now it's a lot harder to attack those things when you don't even have yourself together. And as your team grows, there's more people that depend on you, and there's definitely a different level of responsibility that it's like, dude, you fuck up. Like when I was just tinting by myself, I could fuck up and it just affects me. But now I got a team, and it's like this is going to affect an entire team, and yeah, at least. I have an incredible team. Like I love my team. And when I think about them, like I think about Carla, right? And she's great customer service, really talented person. Tracy's one of my other admins. She's also a really gifted, funny person. She's a research like nerd. She's a gamer. So when I ask her to research, like, hey, can you do research on this person? We're going to do this contractor. When researches, boom, figures out all that stuff. My installers are great too. But when I think about the team, it's like, how do you unlock their best version if you can't even do that for yourself? Mm-hmm. So it's like, fucking, I hope it's to me. I'm like, man, I hope that shit embarrasses you when you don't do these things, because they deserve better too. Right. And so and it's not like, yeah, you can say that they're working for the company, but you're also working for them too, because you want to provide them with a good environment. Half the time they're here at the shop, or half the time they're working here at, in the company. It's like, well, those ideas or thinking about them in ways like being a proper leader to them, like you have to have yourself taken care of before you can do it for somebody else. There's the other saying, before you change the world, make your bed.
Yep. Jordan Peterson.
That was him?
Yep. 100%.
Did you read 12 Rules for Life?
Yeah, that was in there. That's one of the rules.
That's one of the rules.
I started reading it. I'm on chapter. The chapters are longer than the other books that I've read on that one, but I was on chapter 1 with it. It was talking about the lobster.
Yep. Yeah. See, that's a book where it took me a little bit to consume, only because of how much I guess how potent the content is. And it's where it's like, all right, I just listened to 2 hours. Like, I need to process this. There's a lot there, and I really want to think my way through this. And it's like I've listened to that book twice now.
Really,
for the sole reason, and I've listened to it very methodically while I'm going on my long runs. But that's still something that's like how he breaks things down. It's just like there's so much there. It's like, wow. Like, all right, let me think about how I can use this and initiate and put this into my life and actually take accountability for myself. And like, how am I going to expect anyone to change if I'm not willing to change myself and improve myself when it comes down to it?
What would, like, reading that book, what was the main takeaway from the book itself that you would say was maybe like life-changing or something that you carry with you every day?
I think for me, you just brought up the biggest one. And it's funny because I probably listened to that book 2 or 3 times. I need to go back and listen to it again, to be honest with you. But the one that sticks out the most to me is the like, make your own bed, clean your own room. Especially at the time that I read it was kind of shortly after me being kind of psychotic on politics in the 15, 16 timeframe. like spending so much of my time and energy focusing on like wanting the world to be a better place and not, taking care of my own shit. That to me, I think is a really good starting place for everything. Like if you're complaining about anything else or putting blame on anybody else, that in Jocko, discipline equals or extreme ownership. Yeah.
Oh, extreme.
Discipline equals freedom. Like that whole idea of taking ownership. I think those two kind of go like hand in hand. That's kind of what that chapter is really getting on. And it even talks, in my mind, the momentum thing. Cause it's like for him, it's like start by making your bed. And that's going to carry momentum to like, oh, I should probably like put the dirty clothes in the hamper.
Yeah.
And then like, oh, my nightstand's a mess. I should probably clean that up. And then that's going to spread outwardly throughout your whole house, throughout your whole family, and then hopefully into your business. And if you're leading by that example and you're taking care of you first and in aspirations of being able to take care of everybody else better, like that spreads. Like that was a big one for me.
Yeah, I would actually second that. Is take care of yourself. Don't try to change anything else or complain about something else in a situation without, like, if you're not doing it yourself, like, why are you asking that person to do it?
Yeah, I think like Atomic Habits mentioned something about it was a difference in perspective, but they mentioned something about like you do the things that you need to do, not because you feel like you have to do them, is because you're doing them for like that future moment. So for example, like making your bed. And this is the one that things stood out to me. Even to this day, when I want to procrastinate, I tell myself, like, you're not doing it for now, you're doing it for the future. It's like making your bed, for example. You wake up in the morning and you're going to go to work, you're going to come back to a messy bed. Like that has a different, there's a psychological thing to it for sure, because you wake up in the morning, you do your bed, there is that momentum that you're already like, you're taking care of your stuff, but you're also doing it for that moment when you come back from work, whatever happened, you coming back to a nice bed, no matter what.
Yeah.
And that happens in the morning with what you do then. And so it's like, it's a small principle, but if you apply it to everything else, it does carry itself into much, much bigger, like, examples, because the bed is just a small thing, but same thing with like, well, whatever you're eating today, it's going to have its effect one way or the other in the future. So if you're eating like not so good, it's like, don't, eat healthy meals or be disciplined in your diet because of your future. It's going to come around eventually. And even this show itself, like for the last 2 weeks, it was on my, because there were days where it was tough, but there was like the last 2 weeks I would either go to the gym or go to jiu-jitsu, and I'm like, SEMA is going to come around no matter what. Like I'm going to be there no matter what. And I'm either going to have one of two thoughts. Either one, I should have been more on my shit, or two, I'm glad I was on my shit.
Yep.
And so thankfully I'm on my shit.
This is good to hear. I've been doing decent with running, but I definitely could be better right now. But I'm still in that spot of like, it's weird. Is the food one's the really weird one. When I got really crazy and lost all my weight, I got on this mindset of the food thing of like figuring out like the cells in your body are all replacing themselves depending on which part of your body. It's like different time frames, but certain parts of your body, the cells are replacing themselves every 72 hours. And then there's parts of your body that replace every single cell in that area every 9 months. And it's like, if you're eating crap, low quality food and you're not consistent with it for at least 9 months, there's parts of your body that are being comprised of seed oil or McDonald's or whatever the crap was that you ate. So that's what got me to be like super consistent at that time frame, where like I didn't steer away. I didn't have a single cheat day. I spent 9 months eating as clean as humanly possible, like all fresh foods. At that time, I was like being really crazy about being keto. So it was like, not only was I keto, but it was like grass-fed beef and no seed oils whatsoever. And like that idea of like, you are what you eat, literally. And that's where all this disease is coming from. That was the big thing where I was like super into RFK. The idea of like, hey, let's address the real concern with American healthcare. It's not that like insurance companies are necessarily the devil. It's that America's super unhealthy right now. And it's a trend that's just been getting worse and worse and worse. And it mainly stems from our food, because it's just like the phone or not getting up and going to the gym. What's easy and convenient? And that thing in the back of your head that's just like, screw it. I'll just have McDonald's. And
that's the thing, dude. It's also like what's promoted so heavily in our culture. It's fast food. It's consumption. This like, dude,
It's just because it's easy.
It's the rabbit hole, but it's like, yeah, we definitely live in like in a society that's very consumption based, and I don't know, like without going too far into the rabbit, I just don't think that it's a sustainable model. It's like less is more, you know, like you don't shit. Even when I was a kid, you start off your day with donuts and milk, and I think about that now as an adult, I'm like what, like sugar, fat, carbs. Like that's how, if I start my day like that now, fuck that, dude. No way. But that's how, and as a kid, you can eat kind of more not so good, and because you're young and you have energy, your body will kind of like
you don't
excuse
see the
it more.
immediate consequences.
Exactly. As you get older, it becomes less tolerant to that stuff. But now I think back to that stuff in those days, and and I don't blame my poor mom. She worked 2 jobs to get us. So she was busy just trying to keep a roof over our heads. But, bringing the toaster strudels. I don't know if you guys get
the information wasn't there. We grew up on cereal.
Yeah.
Lucky Charms. They didn't know. And the only information that was coming out at the time was from a handful of sources, including the government telling you to eat the food pyramid.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
They just didn't know. And now, luckily, we have the internet. We have podcasts. We have all like Andrew Hubermans of the world, the people that are like digging into the research and showing like, okay, like 90% of the research coming out on food telling what you can and can't eat is coming from these large food manufacturers that are only looking at the bottom line.
Yeah.
They just want to make more money. So the fact that we have that knowledge now has me hopeful that more and more people, and I see it all around me, people that are actually being mindful of these things, like, and actually going out of their way to avoid eating certain things. It's not everybody, and it's still super easy and convenient. And some people still haven't had their eyes open to how bad it is. But the fact that it's not like someone overdosing on fentanyl is immediate.
Yeah, exactly.
But like there's people all around us, and it's like it's some crazy number. Like 1 million people a year are dying from disease that's like cancer, stroke, heart attacks. Like when you add diabetes, when you add all of these things up, there's more people dying every year in this country from stuff that isn't an immediate, like 100,000 people dying from fentanyl is outrageous, and it gets talked about a lot because that's crazy and it's immediate. But the millions of people or 1 million people dying every year from these diseases that didn't exist 6 decades ago is accumulation of 5-6 decades of generationally people just eating what's the most convenient and not even thinking about it.
Oh, convenient, but also too making ends meet. Sometimes you're in a situation where it's like I'm just trying to feed my family.
Yeah, all I can afford right now is the dollar menu, right? And
it's tough, bro, because it's like I love Apple Jack cereal. Probably won't find me eating that anymore, but I love it. It's a great tasting cereal. I used to eat it all the time as a kid. Then you grow up a little older. I guess, now you say with the awareness of information nowadays, like you realize like how not healthy all that stuff was, like growing up. And
that's why I really like Jocko's idea of like, he has a story that he tells about like being at one of his kids' birthday parties, like friends' birthday parties or something. And they passing around cake, and do you want a piece of cake? And he's like, yeah, I'll take a piece of cake. And one of the other parents is like, what happened to discipline? And he's like, this is the freedom part. Because he's disciplined day and night. So it's like, you can have something bad occasionally, as long as it's occasionally and you're disciplined 95% of the time. Now you've got the freedom you've actually stored up that, just like being disciplined with your money. If you're not spending money like you don't care about saving up and you just spend, and there's nothing left in the bank account. Now you don't have the freedom to go on a vacation or do something when you do want to do it. But if you have the discipline to save up and not get in debt, now you've got the freedom to do that thing that you really want to do. Same thing with your health. Like look at it that way. Like, am I storing up credit with myself to when I do come out to SEMA, I can have a good night or two and party it up and enjoy it with the boys and know that that's going to be a little bit of health debt, but I've stocked up a surplus of health, like credit.
I like how you said that. Health debt and stock of surplus of health. Because it is true. The only one that's tricky though is alcohol. That's, I feel like, that's one that you kind of like when you have a bad, like, like if I go out, if you've been consistent for months on your diet, you go out and have a pizza, maybe a slice too much. Generally the next morning you'll be okay.
Fine.
You do that with alcohol, you'll be fucked the next morning, man.
Yeah.
Like ever since when I started getting back into like a really strict routine, when I went to WFCT, there was a karaoke. I don't know if you guys were there for the karaoke bar that night, but
was that the gay bar?
I wasn't there at all. I got left here.
It was like a karaoke bar.
Yeah, that was gay bar.
Was it?
That's what I was told. Not that it matters. I'm not saying that matter at all. But that's why I ended up. I wasn't there long enough to see any indication of that. But I got told by multiple people that's what it was. But yeah, it was a karaoke bar because that's where we showed up there, and then that's when they released the list of the finalists. And as soon as I saw that my name was on the finals, I was like, "Later, guys, I'm going to bed."
Might be a different one, and I don't know. But like I was there for one of the bars, and this is like, dude, I'm like focused. I had some important meetings. And then somebody offers me like, "Hey man, when they're already drunk, they tell you how much they love you and how many whatever." It's just like, "Yeah, let me buy you a drink." I was like, fuck it." I've been consistent. I'll take a drink. The problem is I didn't really stop with one. It didn't, like, the good time starting to roll, and that to me, it's like, I don't know how to describe it, but it comes back to there's that little comfort monster in your brain that wants to just be like, go for the cheap. Like let's feel good and not think about the past, like what's past this feel good act. So then it's like, so I getting on a second drink. I don't know. I went home. I went to my back to my hotel. The next morning, like my Whoop strap, I'm like, dude, I'm like 9% recovered. I don't feel good. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, like I was, like you said, I had built up a pretty good discipline. Where had I not done that, I would have been really wrecked the next morning. But I was so pissed at myself that next morning because I was like, me having that conversation is like, how dare you go out and do something that's now bleeding itself over into the following day where you're not your ultimate version as you go into some of these important meetings. Like the meetings went well, but still, it's like how. Dude, it's like and I had this. I was talking with myself, like, you motherfucker. We had this conversation. Like, you lost focus. Why did I lose focus? Because I gave into this feel good thing in the moment that I didn't think about. Like, hey, remember, you don't make your bed because you're doing it for the now. You make your bed so you have a nice bed to come home to. It's like you don't keep that discipline in those good times during the party because of the now. You do it so that tomorrow you're waking up and you're just as sharp as you were today while everybody else is jacked up and hungover. And it's like, so like yesterday at the expo, I was so pissed at that thing at myself when that happened at WFCT. And that was the time that I told, because Marco, I'm close to him. And I told Marco, I'm like, dude, so pissed at myself. And he goes, you can't tell. Like everything went well. I was like, nah, it's not about that, man. It's just like, I gave into something. Like I was so laser focused this whole time. And this was one of those where it's like, have a pizza, fine. But having drinks and I didn't get plastered, but it just, to me, it was, when my focus isn't there anymore, I don't like that. And I was noticing with other stimulants that for me, like that's how it was affecting me. I was like, you're like, the focus would be razor sharp. And then you put certain stimulants or like you're not eating so good. It's like that sharpness starts to dull out. Yeah. And then the more you do that, the more it doles out. And that next morning, I was so pissed at myself. I'm like, I'm not doing alcohol anymore. Like no. I had a drink yesterday because after we went to the expo party.
Hey, hold on.
You gotta hear it though,
and we've all done it.
No, it's
I'm not drinking anymore.
Yesterday, like after at the expo party, I was up there. I was getting offered. Now I'm like, no, I'm not drinking. I'm not like, nope, not doing it. Not because I was still, bitter about WFCT. But then, like, a couple of us, hey, you want to go to Trump Tower? Yeah, let's go. I've never been to one. Like, fuck it, let's go to Trump Tower. And just like, hey, we're already here. Let's go have a drink. I'm like, all right, there's one time, one drink only. That's it. Just one. Disciplined. I'll give myself the freedom of one drink, but that's where it stops. And so
that's good. Yeah, that's the freedom part, right?
Yeah, but I only had one. And that was where I messed up with the WFCT. I didn't stop at one. Because then it was like, I don't know. It's very dangerous, bro, because like the alcohol thing is it puts you in a moment where temporarily you kind of feeling good. And like you go to people like you normally would. Hey, man, I really appreciate you, bro. Like I really love everything that you do. Thank you for blah, blah, blah. It's like you feel good in the moment. So then you want to keep throwing them down the hatch. And that's the danger because
that's the problem with alcohol because it makes you looser, which actually gives it some fuel.
Sure,
yeah, go ahead.
Your focus doles out, and you're like, what's one more?
That's the real dangerous thing with alcohol is that's what it does. It loosens your inhibitions, so it makes you kind of do stuff that you probably wouldn't do.
Yeah. Your ambition isn't the same. I don't feel like for me because then when you're not, dude, it's like whenever you're gonna go cut down some trees, right? And you know your axe is sharp. You know, one slice gets through a lot. Like there's a certain confidence you're gonna swing that thing because you're like, hell yeah, you know, it's momentum. But then when you know, like, fuck, the handle's loose, like the blade is dull. There's a certain, like, once you start getting in your own head and you have insecurities creeping in, you don't go into things with the same energy, the same drive. It's just not like stimulants to me. I've noticed, like, I have a thing with this, bro. Like, I've seen too many people, some of them that are close to me, that they feel like they have to take something to feel normal.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, dude, you need to do less of things. Like, there is that normal inside you, but you've put so much crap on top of it. You're not in tune with what that feels like. You have to, like, you need to do less of things, like less of the drinking, less of the vapes, less of this, less of the social media scrolling, less of, less of the eating terrible food. You need to do less of those things because then it uncovers, like, I can't, even on Joe Rogan's podcast, when like somebody was talking about like they got like diagnosed with like diabetes, so they dropped sugar, and they're like into their 50s. They dropped sugar, and all of a sudden they had a spike in energy. They're like, I didn't even know that I was supposed to feel. I feel better than I was in my 20s. I didn't know that this is how I was supposed to feel this whole time. It's like, yeah, you had too much crap on top of you. It wasn't you weren't in tune with the ultimate you, with your real.
Well, and for decades, people were told like, oh, you're feeling low energy, like drink a Gatorade, or
Yeah.
like you need to eat something. I hear it still at my kids' sports where like it'll be like a long day of a tournament or something, and I'll hear a parent be like hear a kid say, I'm tired, like, oh, here, you gotta eat this, and they give them something that's like sugary, and it's like, I don't think you necessarily needed that, but the fact that that's still how a lot of people think. That's how everybody thought for the longest time, was like, you've got to get some sugar in you to have energy.
Bro, the Sunny D commercials.
Yeah.
You remember when I was a kid, because I used to skate when I was in my teenage years. I used to skateboard. I used to see the commercials, the Sunny Delight commershhh or whatever. Yeah. The people that were skating, they were like, everybody was out like having a great time, skating, sweating. They go into the water, like, psh, and then they open the door and they're like, yeah, there's water, but like, go for the Sunny D. Right now, pick up a Sunny D or like even the Tampico juices and look at the sugar content.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's
like you're telling me, I was like, wait a minute. So you're out there putting in physical work. Your body is like burning energy. It's wanting to hydrate itself. And what's getting promoted is to go for this overly sugary drink, which is, more sugar dehydrates you even further. And it's like, dude, this is not good. I think I don't know if I maybe had migraines, like if I was just genetically predisposed, but I developed them in my teenage years. And whenever I would think back to what were my habits at that time, I was like, yep, I would skate all day. So I'd be breaking a sweat, and my drinks would be Dr. Peppers or Tampico juices. I'm like, well, if I had that now, dude.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's electrolytes.
You had no salt and then you were replacing your salt with sugar. That's like that is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, you're raising your blood sugar, and the electrolytes is what you're really low on. What's crazy is that's the really wild one. If you look at like Gatorade as a electrolyte drink, it doesn't really have any sodium in it. And especially the ones that are the full sugar ones, it's like really low sodium. That's why I'm now drinking, I'll either do like the Jocko Fuel Hydrate, which is like 1 gram of sugar and 500 milligrams of sodium, and then it's got potassium, magnesium in lower amounts. But then you look at some of the other ones that are being pushed right now, like Prime. Same thing. Element's great. There's a handful of different ones
a day usually,
but like
depending on what I'm doing.
And that's another lie that we were told for years, that like sodium's bad and it causes high blood pressure and stuff. There's a small percentage of people that have high blood pressure that shouldn't have a bunch of extra sodium, but it's a very small percentage of people, especially if you are working hard and like really sweating.
Yeah.
You need to get more sodium in you. And headaches are like one of the most common side effects of being dehydrated. That and cramping. That's one of the things I learned in the military is like, if you're having a really bad headache, you're probably dehydrated.
Yeah.
So you can't just drink water, and you definitely don't want to drink a Prime or a Gatorade. That's the other one that's like seems like a total scam to me.
Prime,
no sodium in it. Like it's like it's basically just a repeat Gatorade, but they call it healthier because there's coconut water in it. But like,
dude, I got
still no sodium.
Sucked into that with the vitamin waters. I used to buy the vitamin waters all the time because like you just think about the name, like, oh, vitamin water. Yeah. Then somebody told me, it was like, have you looked at the sugar content? And then the next time I went back, I turned it around, looked at the nutrition facts, the sugar content. I was like, holy crap. Like, this is what I've been drinking?
Yeah.
Dude, it's like, I don't know. It's just, when you get into advertisement and the influence of like corporations on the food industry, it's
and labels are all nonsense. Like there's so many crazy labels that make people think something's healthy just because it has the
vitamin water, organic
on a package, or vegan, or like even keto gets abused like crazy. Like there's a way to eat ketogenically that's like super healthy, and then there's a way to do it that's totally unhealthy. Same thing with being a vegan. Like I'm not going to do it, but there's a way to do it healthy, but it's going to be expensive. And to actually get the right amount of protein in you, you're going to have to be very, very thorough on what you're doing and like know what you're doing. Keto, same thing. You could be getting Wendy's without a bun, or McDonald's without a bun.
Yeah, Marco does that.
Yeah. Like that to me would be like one of the more unhealthy ways to do it. If I'm gonna do it, like In-N-Out's like the worst case scenario I'm gonna do.
Really?
Or maybe a Chipotle bowl with no rice.
Oh god, Chipotle bowl. They seed oils, right?
Probably.
Because every time, dude,
still bad.
If I eat a Chipotle bowl in the morning, I'm full the entire day and I don't feel like doing anything.
Yeah. So here's the crazy thing. Like I just saw this video recently. If you take your Sunday and you figure out how much you would need to make your own Chipotle bowls, like you could, for like the price of like 2 bowls, or 1.5 bowls, make the entire week worth of your own bowls and just have them prepped and ready to go. And you could do it with no seed oils. And that's the problem, is the quick, easy, convenient fix is typically going to have something in it that's still not good. But like for me, In-N-Out and Chipotle are like if I'm going to do something out, I'm going to do that. But I'm going to do In-N-Out like a Flying Dutchman, which is just like meat and cheese.
Yep.
But even that is like still teetering towards the unhealthy version. Like my grandma's claims to be vegetarian, and like, cause she thinks it's healthy, but she'll have a peanut butter and potato chip sandwich like at night for a snack.
Peanut butter potato chip?
Yeah. Like Lay's potato chips or something.
Yeah.
Cause it
I've never heard of that. So it's bread,
peanut butter and some chips. But she's eating healthy because there's no meat. And I'm like, meat's not the problem. It's
no. The funnier part with that is like anytime like if we have like a family dinner and like I'll cook sauce and like she'll have the pasta with the sauce. I'm like, I know I've told her and I know she knows. It's like, do you not understand how much fat is in that sauce I just cooked? I just cooked a pork butt in there for 4 hours. You know how much rendering of fat is in that sauce? Like, you can throw that vegan shit right out
so
the
like
window.
the labels is what I was pointing at. It's like all these different labels can get abused on packages to like make people think something's healthy because of some idea they got in their head through marketing that that's the healthy way to eat, and a lot of it's nonsense. Like
our father
eat some whole foods that aren't contaminated with seed oils,
but also in the correct proportions too. Because like unfortunately, like my dad, like he'll make himself a smoothie. And then he'll do an entire thing of like fruit. It's like, how much fruit you just put in that smoothie? Like, do you not understand how much sugar you are now consuming?
Fructose too, so it's even worse.
Well, the fructose, yeah, but like, so somebody said this, like, because I love eating fruit, especially grapes, and I love munching on grapes. And sometimes I do it at night. Oh, I do.
Oh,
that's that's like the best fruit hack ever. Because it's kind of like,
for grapes are like the worst fruit to eat. They like have the worst glycemic index.
Really?
When you're running a 100-mile race, it's delicious.
Yeah.
I got exposed to the frozen grapes at one of the races we ran together, Javelina.
Yeah.
We got to an aid station. They want some frozen grapes, and I was like, nah. And then I'm like, all right, okay, give them to me. I walked away, I ate them. I walked back up. I was like, can I have another one? And they kind of giggled and laughed. And I was like, oh my God. Because at the time, I think it was in the middle of the day. It was hot as hell. Yeah. And I was like, this is amazing. Oh my God.
Yeah, but like even fruit, right?
It's like candy, but it's not candy. It's like
all in the correct proportions. That's what matters. Like, if you're going to have a handful, have a handful.
And like even like think of a banana. Like how often would you have access to a banana and in what time of year? The fact that we have access to some of these fruits that aren't even in season in times of the year, that just because of our modern systems, like you could think fruit is a super healthy thing, but like how much of it should you be eating and how often? Like that's another thing that's like we don't even take into account. Like I feel like berries are probably the safest thing, but even those, like how often are you eating them? And when I was like really eating cleanly keto, that was the only type of sugar I would have because I knew it was a low glycemic index and I could stay in ketosis if I had like berries at night, like some blueberries.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing I'd have at night for like a sweet treat. But Yeah, the whole food thing is such a maze to go down. It's just good that people are finally going down it and trying to figure it out. Like, I don't think there's a perfect way to eat. I don't think, eat carnivore or whatever. Like, there's a bunch of different ways you could do it if you dig in, you like, and everybody's different too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So you gotta find what works for you.
You got to find out what works for you and dig in and see. I don't know. There's just a bunch of different ways to do it. At one point, I thought like keto was the end all be all, and then I started training jujitsu.
Sure
I realized I couldn't train jujitsu like that. I had to add some carbs back in because I'd be so low energy by the end of a jujitsu match. How high are you getting your heart rate up? There's so many factors that go into it. But you need to be a student in your own health and make yourself N 01. Like, what works for somebody else might not work for you. But if you're constantly just the same way we're working on our businesses, you're working on Tinder battles, constantly trying to learn and improve at it, you're going to get healthier. I think people that end up getting obese and staying that way and never figure out a way to like actually get the weight off and get healthy have just given up on trying for the most part. Because it's like, I've tried these just the same way people that aren't successful on social media, they try a couple times and go, this doesn't work, and they stop trying. I think that's like the ultimate is like, if you stop trying, you're done for. But as long as you keep trying and trying to learn more, you're probably going to figure it out.
Yeah, dude, that obesity, like the mindset, because I had been, dude, I'm prone. If I let myself go, like, I could gain weight, dude. So like, I've been obese multiple times. I've lost a significant amount of weight multiple times. Like, I'm very familiar with the mindset of, like the mindset that comes from as a byproduct of the bad habits, the procrastination, the excess of the low dopamine, the cheap dopamine habits and stuff like that. And it's terrible. It actually creates a feedback loop because you think that you're doing something to try to make you feel better. Like with eating, especially binge eating, like in the moment you want to make yourself feel better. So then you go eat something that brings you that kind of like feel good, which would be usually a bad food that's not good for you. And then you're like, you feel good in the process of it, but then you feel worse after. And so as you do this like meal after meal, day after day, it's like, well, to make us feel better, I'm going to go. This is my issue. I'm going to go get a bag of Cheetos.
Yeah, I'm the same
moment,
way, man.
I'm a
with sweets. If it's like you with the drinking at the conference, right? Like for me, for some reason, I know this. That's why I just like have to not have it in my house. Is if my wife makes some cookies, if I eat one cookie, that whole tub's going down tonight. Like I don't have the ability to just
it starts with one.
I'm
just gonna have one.
I'm gonna jump off this cliff. Jump off this cliff.
It's tricky.
Yeah,
but you start with one. That's why it's hard. I didn't even want to flirt with drinking anymore because I'm just like, no, I'm not a drinker, by the way. I don't hope nobody's getting that idea that
No.
I never had an alcoholic problem. I've never. It was never an issue. I've gotten to the point where I'm that strict to where even one night of, that, and I wake up hungover, I'm pissed at myself the following morning because I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Like, you know better than this shit.
I get it.
So
I'm on the same
if
page.
if I have a night where I'm drinking, I know I'm about to have 2 or 3 days of recovery. And it's like during that recovery, I'm just like, God damn it. Like it's not as young as I used to be. And as you obviously get older, you really start realizing like all those statements that were made, you're like, God, they're all goddamn true.
Yeah.
Like mid-20s could do that and be pretty much good the next day, just deal with it. And then the day after, I was good to go. Now it's like if I have a night of drinking, it's like the next day I'm trying to find a way to make myself feel better, which it should be to go work out. But then it's like I'm going to try to eat some food, and then you end up eating something you're not supposed to. And then like the next day, it's like then you're trying to get your sleep back because beyond just the drinking, the night of drinking, and that throwing your body off, you're not sleeping that night either. So you're really going hard on the fact that your body is just saying, what the hell? So where it's like, I'm trying to catch up on my sleep. I'm trying to hydrate my body again. And it now at least takes me about 3 days, I would say, if I like have a night of drinking to actually recover. And it's just like, all right, was it worth it? I mean, the memories and having a fun time with friends and, people that you haven't seen in a long time. Yeah. You create memories, but at the same time, at a certain point, something's got to give.
Yeah.
And I think you have to get back over there for that contest.
I
think
got to go back to the,
I think it's a good spot to
Expel SEMA booth, Las Vegas convention, man. So I got to go back there and entertain the crowds. Got to get my mind ready for another sprint, bro. Because like even coming into this one, I was like winding down, and I was like, okay, you gotta wind back up. So
well, if we weren't having to do another one of these, I would be there because that's something to not miss. But hopefully somebody there is going live or something. Get somebody to go live.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. Like, if there's content that's being captured and posted. In fact, Marco, it's funny. Marco's one of the guys that I've worked with in terms of like how to capture content and captioning stuff like that. He's been a really good executor. He's actually probably been. We're just different. But in terms of industry related like content, he's been more successful than me at like gathering views. It's just we're two different platforms though. But I'm not counting Tinder battles. I'm just counting Texas Squeegee's accounts versus his. But like he's been really good. But dude, he made a video yesterday where it was one of the challenges. 3, 2, 1, protect. And so that last time I checked last time I checked, it was 100,000 views. But I was in his hotel room, and he's like, "When should I post this?" And I'm like, "Dude, I would be posting all of them tonight." And I'm like, "Really, all of them?" Like, yes. Like, who? I remember this is like an old idea. Like, you post them in the morning, then in the afternoon. Yeah, to me, I'm like, post it now because sometimes certain videos would just take off randomly. I'm like, just get it out there and get it over with.
Fully agree.
So he posted one. He was like, I don't know what should I caption it? How should I start? I'm like, let me see. And then I took his phone and I captioned it. I started it over. I'm just kind of moving. It's at last I checked before I came here was 100,000 views. It hasn't been 24 hours on his Instagram account.
Oh, that's crushing.
It is awesome. The funny thing is like when I was watching it and I see this and I told him this video is gonna pop. This video is gonna pop. He's like, you think so? I'm like, just watch. You'll thank me later. And sure enough, they are. And then whenever I saw him today, I was like, dude, 100,000 views, it's already passed. And I'm just like, I told you. And then I looked at it again and I just started laughing because this is exactly the same thing that I re-rolled for Tinder battles. Like the way that I was telling Marco to capture where the angles to get them from, the quick shifts and like, what I call a hero, not what I call, but what's called the hero shots, like recording somebody from the bottom up so it looks bigger, like maximizing the frame rate of, okay, we got a timer on the background, a car right here and installer right here. And I'm like, could you get that in one opening shot so that right away the viewer is like, timer, challenge, this. Like people love challenges and competitions, and this is something that's new that you don't really see. Take advantage of that. And so whenever we start, sure enough, 100,000 views less than 24 hours later, and then he's got a lot more content to post. So yeah, like if to watch that content, it's at the film trainer on Instagram. I'll be posting some myself at Texas_squeegee. I'm Expel should post it on their account, but we'll see. We'll see. Should. It's like, dude, I'm not crazy. I tell people I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. But I'm like, I tell them, like, if you're coming out with a new product, like you want views, you want hands on the product, you want an engagement. It's like the big giant booth is not a guarantee for that. So
use the booth to make the content to actually get the engagement.
Now the booth is important because it's the environment that brings the magic to life, but without the engagement factor, it just makes a nice picture and like, great, you spent 6 figures, maybe 7 figures on his booth, but what did you get as a long-term value? Your videos live forever. And then now you got a piece of content. Like I'll give you an example, like, and I know we got to go, but I'll give you an example for a little bit. The XPEL windshield protection film, it's a TPU film and it installs like PPF, right? And like as business people, or even as installers that are on commission, you look at what's your time in versus or what's your time out on your commission rate. So the faster that you get, you'll have more productivity, so you make more money. With this XPEL windshield protection film, one of the selling points of it is that the ease of installation, because your turnaround time is faster, so then you can make that money. We could spend a lot of money on advertising campaigns, letting people know it's a quick install, it's easy, installer friendly, whatever, or you can take that same message, put it into an entertaining, engaging video, put it out there and let the people, like most people are not that dumb, bro. Like they'll see, wait, they install it in 30 seconds? Can you really install it that fast? I'm like, yeah, you can watch the videos. Boom, people are doing it. Obviously, like that's not prep time and everything. Like, so I don't want to say it's a 30-second install, but still, like at prep time, maybe it's a 30-minute, maybe it's a 20-30-minute install, right? And you're according to the numbers, your product cost is $150. You can retail at $500 to $600. And if it's a 30-minute install, I mean, do the math,
Makes sense to me.
I mean, sorry, if it's if it's a 30-minute install, it's quick. But that's one of the things that I think that to any company listening, if you're if you wise up to some of these things that are happening around, like engagement and views is where it's at when you're trying to raise awareness or market a certain product, service, company. Like that's where it's at, especially in the world of today where it's so saturated with media and everything is unlike any other time in our history. Like everything is fighting for your attention. What gets attention, it's new and unique.
Yes.
Like that's what's going to get, where the traffic's going to go organically. And then if you have organic performing posts, dude, you put it on an ad campaign.
1000%. That's been our success this year. Let's take advantage of the fact that we got the Texas Squeegee in the house. Can you take us out and take us out?
That's that'll be concluding this episode of the Born to Tint podcast here live in Henderson, Nevada, with Josh Miller, Ricky Miller, and the glass tinting, filtering, and tint reading, hell raising, trailblazing the Texas Squeegee. This is the conclusion. Born to Tint, Squeegee that.
Subscribe.